for the majority of people currently living in the Western world, where our lives are defined primarily by the jobs that we do, our work, people, for the most part, begin every day, each morning, awoken rather abruptly, rather crassly, by the sound of an electronic alarm clock. And this is how we begin our days, with a strident, piercing that awakens us in the morning every day. And from there, a myriad of thoughts enter our minds about what we have to do that day and the work that we have to do and the places that we have to go and zip, zip, zip around and do this, that, and the other. But it all begins with the sound of an obnoxious alarm clock. The time that the alarm clock goes off, maybe 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. if you're very lucky and you have a different sort of job that doesn't involve going to an office. But most people have a regular schedule and they have to get up. I won't say early in the morning because culture is not obsessed with going to work or a job. Typically got up much earlier. They got up with the sun. They got up with the sound of the crowing roosters at dawn, very early. So it's not that we're being woken up too early. It's that we're being woken up abruptly by the sound of an alarm clock that is out of accordance with the natural harmony of the world itself. The rising sun, the gentle sunlight coming over a valley or over the mountaintops, coming streaming into your home through windows that are open to the east in your bedroom. That's the most natural way to awaken. And as such, we should go to bed around the time that the sun sets, or a little later. We can burn candlelight and so forth, or even electric light. It's not a problem. But to the extent that we dread getting up in the morning, we dread the sound of the alarm clock, to that extent we stay up very late, hypnotized by dancing light on TV screens, distracting us from the life that we have to be living the next day, that we dread, that we don't want to go to, that we don't want to wake up for, that we're not inspired to live. So we stay up very late, out of accordance with the harmony of the natural world, and we get up, woken abruptly by the sound of an alarm clock. And our entire day proceeds from that abruptness. The abruptness of going from the subconscious thoughts in sleep to discordant conscious thoughts dictated by the constructs of society. And every single day that begins this way, starting with stress, increases the stress that we feel on a day-to-day basis. So where am I going with this? Approximately 1 year ago, at the age of 33, it was as though a cosmic alarm clock went off in my mind, and I wasn't awakening for a day to go to work, to be stressed. There was a cosmic alarm clock that went off in my mind, and it said, "Wake up! You can no longer be asleep. You can no longer live your life in a manner consistent with somebody who is living a waking daydream, like so many of us are, all the time, every day. We're awake, but we're not really awake. We're conscious, but we're not in control of our actions. Our actions are dictated by the thoughts and demands of others, of the society that we live in, of the jobs that we go to. Our lives, by and large, are not our own." And when I was awoken by this cosmic alarm clock going off in my head, it was the most gentle and at the same time disturbing sensation I had ever experienced. Much more gentle than the sun rising over the mountains and the gentle light of the pre-dawn waking me up, much more discordant than the sound of an obnoxious alarm clock waking a person up in the morning to go to work. It was so gentle because I realized that I had been asleep and it was time to wake up. It was, however, obnoxious because I knew not what I was waking up for at all. I hadn't the slightest glimmer I had only faith that I was asleep and now I was awakening. Now, if this sounds all too metaphysical and vague, let me try and be more specific at this point. Ever since I can remember, since perhaps I was 8 years old, I can always remember feeling a deep desire to meditate. Only that word came much, much later, as I learned what it meant, what meditation meant, as I started exploring Buddhism and other spiritual practices. Nevertheless, since I was 8, I always had felt an inner need, desire, spirit calling me, for lack of a better word, my higher self calling me, to center, to focus, to be present in the moment, at least for several moments during the course of every single day, typically in the evening. I began meditating when I was 8 years old, under this definition, usually in the evenings around 8 p.m. or so. And I would sit in my bed, in my bedroom, door closed, creating a cocoon of silence, stillness, and peace. And I would sit and I would center myself, sitting cross-legged or laying down on my bed, and just focusing on my own being, my own thoughts, typically. And centering myself in the moment, in the present. And the substance of those thoughts during meditation, as a young child, revolved around this basic inquiry. Phrased in the words of a child, the question came out in this way: what is what? Later on, I defined that more clearly. What is reality? What is existence? What is my life? What is your life? What is this world? What is the universe? What is the multiverse? What is this place that we're in, that we're born into? What is this reality that we're experiencing? But these thoughts were formed in my head from a very, very early age. And it took me another 25 years, first of all, of education into our cultural conditioned system, of college, of university, of having a job that pays money in order so that I could earn my way in the world. 25 years of this before I realized fundamentally, well, I still don't know what the nature of reality is. I still don't know what is what, but I can tell you beyond all certainty, it is not this. It is not this perception of life that we are given, force-fed, told to believe in, the idea that we have to have a life that corresponds to the underlying fabric of Western civilization, that we are running like hamsters on a wheel, over and over and over again, stressed every single day. It's like Groundhog Day. We wake up and every single day is the same. Only it has no substance. It has no reality. It's artificial. It's a false perception. It's an illusion that prevents us from getting in touch with the true nature of what is what. At the age of 33, I finally woke up to the idea that although I didn't know what is what really, I knew it is not this. And that was the cosmic alarm clock that went off in my head and jolted me awake, and it told me beyond all reasonable doubt, I cannot do this any longer. I must find out the truth. What is what for real? Because it is not this. The certainty of that statement was the most gentle, reassuring presence of mind I've ever felt. More nurturing than a mother telling her child everything will be okay and the child believing that absolutely. More nourishing than that. The fundamental certainty that this was not what is what. The jarring realization of the cosmic alarm clock going off is that I knew I had no idea. I had less of an idea than ever what is what really. I had awoken to the idea that this is not what, but I had no idea what is what. So for the past year, I have been, and I always shall be, to quote Star Trek, searching for the nature, the true nature of existence itself, and how one can live a meaningful life in the context of knowing what is what. This this quest, this journey, is the most fulfilling steps on the path that I've ever taken in my life, and also the most terrifying and frightening. I have dispelled from my mind the illusion that what we believe is what is not truly the what that we must be seeking, and yet I have no idea what the what truly is. It's like looking through a glass wall at what lies beyond and realizing that what lies beyond is not true reality, and that the glass wall itself truly is reality. But it takes a specific kind of honing of sight in order to be able to see the glass wall itself when we have been culturally conditioned for all of our lives, for the past 2,000 years of civilization, if not more than that, to ignore completely the glass wall itself and look at only what is beyond. And what is beyond, in the context that we're seeing it, is only what culture and civilization tells us is beyond. It's the structure of the society that we're born into. But the real reality is the glass wall, the invisible vision that we can't possibly see because we haven't been trained to see it. We have, in fact, been miseducated against being able to see it. Now, young children can see it. This is the same phenomenon that occurs when children, or cats for that matter, stare at invisible specks on the wall with the utmost fascination. They just stare at them, stare at this empty space. And adults look and they say, "You're crazy, you're staring at nothing, there's nothing there." Well, they're actually staring at something which is truly actually there. And they can see it because they haven't been culturally misinformed to ignore it. Joseph Chilton Pearce, the child psychologist who did a lot of work in the 60s and 70s, did research into what he calls the demyelinations of the mind. At different stages of growth, of development, through adolescence, puberty, and into adulthood, there are different stages in which the mind, the plasticity of the brain, solidifies itself in certain key ways to dismiss things that it has been told or conditioned to consider unimportant. And it loses the innate ability that a child has to see these now believed to be unimportant factors of reality. But what culture considers to be the unimportant factors of reality are in fact the essential nature of reality itself. Now, luckily, we don't have to be slaves our whole lives to the demyelinations of the brain, which eliminate our ability to see these things, because the brain itself is incredibly plastic, which means that we can learn foreign languages all throughout our lives, we can learn new skills, we can pick up new abilities that we didn't know that we had the capacity to learn because of the plasticity of the mind. In other words, we can revert the process of the demyelination of the mind. We can recondition the boundaries of our thoughts in order to see the things which we can realize are important once again. After we have been conditioned by society, we can learn to be unconditioned from that conditioning. There is an adage that says, a scholar will learn something new every day, but a man of Zen will unlearn something every day. And the thing which we're having to unlearn is all of the cultural conditioning that stands in our way of seeing the ultimate reality, the glass wall, the invisible, translucent, transparent glass wall, which is the nature of reality itself. That is the what is what. Not what's beyond, not what we've been culturally conditioned to believe is what, but the actual substance itself, which lies invisible to our conscious awareness because we have been trained to tune it out. The real trick then becomes to learn how to tune it back in. And the best way to go about doing this is to seek out other like-minded souls who are on the same quest and to see how they're seeing the world, not to copy their perceptions, but to see what it looks like to see the world in a different lens, through a different pair of eyesight, through a different pair of colored glasses, as it were. To take off the glasses that culture has conditioned us to wear, and to put on new glasses that allow us to see the fundamental reality. Now, the best way to do this is to find other people that are wearing those glasses already, and they do exist. We must seek out those people. If the true desire is to find a different way of seeing the world, then a key component of that quest is seeking out others who are seeing the world already in this way and see what it looks like through their eyes, so that we begin to reacculturate ourselves into a new paradigm. Step 1 is merely rejecting the old paradigm, which is no longer useful. Step 2 is determining the new paradigm. And that's the harder part. So in other words, the question that I originally posed to myself, what is what, can only be asked when we realize fundamentally it is not what we've been told it is all along. Then we can actually ask that question, from seeing what it is not to seeing what it truly is and might be. And the quest to find those answers, for me, began when I was 33. And I realized that as I go forward to find out what truly is what, part of my true soul's path in life is to encourage other seekers to be able to ask the question and find their own answers. What is what? To point to that fundamental question and to show for those people that are interested in learning this new technique, to teach them how to ask the question outside of the construct that society imposes upon us, saying, well, don't ask the question of what is what, this is what, exactly this. Go get a job and get woken up by an alarm clock every morning at 7 a.m., completely out of accord with the fundamental rhythms of nature. That's what society says is what. And I encourage you, each one of you and everyone, to ask the question for yourself, what is what? And ask that in meditation, and ask that in the community and the company of other like-minded people who have rejected the idea that what is what society says is what. Ask that question and find your own answers. Begin that quest at any point in your life. It doesn't matter when. The fundamental question is how and where to begin. And it begins with meditation. Going inside in yourself, first asking yourself the question, what is it not? And then finding other people who might have actually begun stumbling upon the answer, what is it for real?